Okay, it is October 14th, 6 p.m. We're on the second floor of City Hall for a common council meeting for the city of Rhinelander. Agenda's been posted, media has been notified. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt.
Here.
Stephen Jopek.
Here.
Luke Kramer.
Here.
Kerry Michalowski.
Here.
Gerald Anderson.
Here.
Thomas Barnett.
Here.
Bob Luter.
Here.
Leanne Felton.
Here.
Chris Hannes.
Here. We do have quorum. Please stand for the pledge. Okay, moving on to number 4, which is public comment. I have a Wendy.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Bouchain. I live at 903 Thayer Street, which is the corner of Thayer and Rose Street. So as you've noticed that we've all been here quite a few weeks expressing our concerns about the Messer Street project. And I wanted tonight I realize that you probably made up your minds, but I'd like to just put one last thing before you. And that is the personal cost to my husband and myself if you go through with the project the way that it's set up. The number one problem will be the loss of our driveway, which the majority of which would be gone, which means that our vehicle would have nowhere to park. And any visitors that we have excuse me, in the wintertime would have nowhere to park because you can't park on the street in the winter. Number 2, the loss of our fence and part of our backyard, including part of our patio and part of the landscaping that we have worked very hard to put in. Our backyard consists of a huge rose garden that I've nurtured and tended for the last 5 years. As well as vegetables that I grow in raised beds. I've gone through and put a lot of money and hard work into making it a beautiful place, a peaceful place, somewhere that we can sit and enjoy our summers. I also want to talk about our yard, the front yard and side yard in particular. Well, there would be no side yard for us. We would have a sidewalk that would basically run underneath our house windows. And never mind the trees that are along the side there. I realize they are on city property. However, we lose the advantage of having natural cooling for us in the summertime and additional privacy. Rose Street is used mainly as a boat. All the boats come down there. So nobody really walks down there, but it is heavy traffic as far as boats are concerned. However, you enlarge the road and you do the things that you want to do to our property, you're also going to affect the trees that are on my personal property. In which case, we have probably, I'm bragging, we probably have the most beautiful maple tree in the neighborhood. It is huge. It is in full bloom right now as far as the beautiful colors. And the way that the little pink flag has been put will show that the roots of the tree will be disturbed, and so we will end up losing that tree. So we will go from originally having about 9 trees on our property down to 1. And I just feel like, we bought this property 5 years ago with the idea that we're going to stay here for the rest of our lives and enjoy it. It was beautiful. It had everything that we wanted. Trees, shade, privacy, everything. And that now will all be disturbed. And then I want to talk about the fact that if you put in those extra sidewalks, my husband and I can no longer do snow blowing ourselves. So we pay somebody who comes to do the snow blowing. You put a sidewalk along there, you're going to cost us between $30 and $40 extra to what we're already paying now because we have sidewalk all along Thayer Street. So for us, if you think about it, and you figure how many snowfalls of 3 or 4 inches or greater, we have quite a few here in the area. This is going to cause a financial hardship to us, not to mention our parking issue, which I already spoke about. Also, I feel that you need to understand that when we purchased the property, there was no whisper of any of this going on. We probably would not have bought the property had we known that a lot of it, all the charm and all the things that make it special for us, would be destroyed. Now, I'm speaking to you as just one person, but I want you to know I'm standing with the whole neighborhood. Even though we don't get the benefit of the new sewer and water lines because our lines go out to Thayer Street, we know that, we'll end up paying whatever the property tax increase is, not to mention all the other. My husband and I both stand with the residents, all of us, when we explain to you that this neighborhood is important to us. We put a lot of time, effort, sweat, and love into our homes. They're our homes. And to come in and just not really consider the major upheaval that this project will cause without some serious amendment, I just think that you guys need to be aware of that. All right, well, that's all I had to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I have John. John, if you could just turn the mic on or turn red. There you go.
Good evening, guys. My name is John. I'm at 125 East Harvey Street. I noticed there's a safety hazard with cars going 40 plus miles per hour. Only way I could tell, I'm a student pilot. And this is all day and all night. Like last year on Harvey and Stevens, a child got hit. I almost got hit a week ago by a cab with walking my dog. Us East Harvey Street, trying to bring up to your attention, we could do anything with speed patrol or slow down people like speed traps or speed bumps to slow it down before anything could happen again with a child from the school behind on East Harvey Street. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a Ryan.
Hello, I'm Ryan Schuweiler, 804 Evergreen Court, and I'm here to talk about the Messer Street project. I'm going to encourage all the city council members to vote against a sidewalk and expanding the roads tonight. I want to bring up another point, like my neighbor already mentioned before, is for me personally, I'm on the corner of Evergreen and Pearl, so I'm scheduled to have sidewalks put in on both sides of my yard. So I will be losing a significant chunk of my yard space. I measured the other day from the foundation of my house to the end of my driveway is 24 feet 6 inches. So if we take out 13 and a half feet that's proposed, my driveway is going to be down to 11 feet. My vehicle is 17 feet long. Where am I supposed to park in the wintertime? I think that's a legit concern that the city council should entertain. It's not just me. Many of us have small driveways. That's going to be a significant issue for us in the wintertime of parking, winter and summer. I mean, our chief of police even mentioned at the last meeting that right now parking's not really an issue in our neighborhood. It's a quiet neighborhood. If we do this, my concern is you're going to see more cars parked on the road and more potential issues that are going to come up from that. I've got 4 little boys that want to go outside and want to play catch with a ball, and now I'm going to have a sidewalk going through the middle of my yard on one side, and then another 16 feet on Evergreen Court coming up this way. It's not super fun playing catch with your boys when you have a sidewalk going right through the yard. So I would encourage you all to think about your role as city council members is to represent the people, and think about what does the group want? What do the people want? And I'm just going to ask everyone here to raise your hand if you are in support of no sidewalks to our area. This is what the people want, and I'm just going to encourage you to represent the people well. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a Rochelle.
Is it on? Okay. Hello. Good evening to you all. I'm Rochelle Feldy, 1004 Messer Street, corner of Fremont and Messer. I kind of wrote up something, so don't mind me looking down. We had invited all of you to partake in a neighborhood ride along with Matt Campbell, which some of you have taken us up on. The reason that we had wanted to invite you to our neighborhood is that none of you actually reside in our neighborhood, and we wanted to give you a sense of what our neighborhood is like from our point of view, not a diagram or driving by on your way to the park or just randomly passing through. While I understand that the engineer's job, thank you, Mark, for all your diligence, is not easy, I cannot assume that just removing sidewalks from one road each side was too hard to do for the second process. I am not an engineer, but with computer programs these days, I am just assuming it was not. I think that we need to work on this better. Taking into consideration the people who have lived here for many, many years, those that were the first to build here and are still living their years out here, such as my neighbor Joe, and for those that have moved here in the last 5 to 20 years. There is a reason we live here and purchased homes here. One reason we purchased here was, of course, the location, that and there was no sidewalks or trees. I know that is against the grain on a lot of people here with their trees, but they have trees. We do not. We had one tree when we bought the house. It was in our sewer system, and so it's gone, and we were thankful. And that the only reason I'm saying it's good for our house to not have trees is because my family is highly allergic, okay? So in our lot, we're okay with keeping no trees, especially if there's a sidewalk and then you put in trees. That will be more allergies in our house than I can tell you. Changing our roads to introduce a sidewalk and widening the roads would pose major problems. The dip in the driveways would be much steeper instead of gradual, which they are now, making many vehicles bottom out at the end. In the places where there have never been sidewalks, these have never been needed. There is not enough foot traffic except for a few days a year to grant this addition. What we do need is additional stop signs at Fremont and Messer and a 3-way stop sign at Hodig Park Drive and Messer Street. A 15-mile-per-hour speed zone on the park area of Messer would help as well. I have noticed that there were already people out this last week marking the right-of-way corners. This is a concern, as if no decision has been made yet, it feels like there actually has been with why are they out. We know everyone is pretty done with all the talk over this. I'm sure you're sick of it too. But it is very obvious that this is a real concern in our neighborhood. Please imagine this was happening where you live. Would you like it? How would you feel not being able to park in your driveway, especially when the winter parking ban is in place? Please consider only sidewalks at the park and redoing the streets as is. Not only is it immensely cost-saving to the city and to us, but the beauty and enjoyment of our neighborhood would stay intact. We already endure the 4th of July traffic, baseball traffic, park traffic, and Northwoods Lights traffic. We do so gracefully, which not many other neighborhoods have to endure. When the fair is in town, that part of Oneida Street is blocked off from traffic, which could be a consideration for the 4th of July on the Parkside area of Messer Street. Thank you so much for all the time spent on this and for all your consideration. We truly hope your final decision will be a carefully thought out one, as if this is where you live. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a Matt.
Hello again, everybody. Since this might be the last time I speak on this, I did want to write down my thoughts this time, so forgive me for reading off a sheet of paper, but good evening, council members and fellow residents. I want to start by acknowledging that in the past, I've spoken on behalf of my neighbors. We thought it would be most prudent to minimize the time we take from council with one voice representing our collective concerns. Tonight, however, I'm speaking on my own behalf. These are my thoughts alone, and no one else has reviewed or endorsed them. Once again, I want to thank each of you for the time that you've dedicated to this matter. I understand from our various discussions that this situation is far from normal, so I appreciate that you've walked this road with us. Special thanks goes to those of you who have spent an inordinate amount of time on this. We are lucky to have such dedicated representatives in our city. That being said, I've also personally invested a lot of time into this issue, perhaps as much as anybody else. I've spoken with neighbors in both large gatherings and one-on-one. I've met with many city officials, likely as much as anybody else in the neighborhood, because I was asked to speak on behalf of my neighbors, a responsibility of which I've taken seriously. And while I'm happy from the responses from the city council, I feel that due to my position so far and involvement, I might be uniquely situated to discuss a few areas where the Mark Barton's plan can be improved for a few other people. One of the reasons that I feel like I might be uniquely situated is that if Mark Barton's plan goes into action, I've personally gained from the altered plan, and more than I probably hoped for when I first found out about this project was occurring. At the beginning of this process, I was set to lose 16 feet of yard on one side of my house and 20 feet on the other. As a father of 4 young boys, that space is critical, just like Ryan was saying. It's where they play, it's where my wife and I get a bit of peace while working or attending to our house projects, and losing that space would have forced us to consider moving for the first time because we need outdoor space. And what a shame that would have been. I love our house, I love our neighbors, I love our neighborhood. I appreciate that you've reduced this personal impact to me, and I'm hopeful that we can push the sidewalk as close to Rose Street as possible to save even more space if we can. But as happy as that I am for my own situation, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize that the plan still falls short for many others. And while I'm happy, I've been placed in a position where I've heard each of the individual concerns of our neighbors and many of the alderpersons. I'd like to address a few key points that the council will consider, that I hope the council will consider during tonight's agenda. To give you some context, I work as a software engineer, where my job is to think through logical solutions every day. In software, everything is driven by logic. Computers only understand what we program them to do. This means that I have to carefully consider all possible outcomes to ensure we build solutions that work best for the largest number of users. Every decision must balance ease of use, efficiency, and scalability. And while I'm not a civil engineer and I don't deal with roads or bridges, I believe I can apply the same logical approach to this situation. My role in this discussion has given me a unique perspective, as I've mentioned, and I'm used to tackling complex problems by finding solutions that work for most people without overcomplicating things. I'd like to approach the remaining concerns in that same spirit of practical, logical thinking. First, I don't believe we need to widen the streets to 36 feet as the current plan calls for. Several officials at the last meeting stating that widening the street wasn't necessary. If traffic has flowed fine for years, except during the 4th of July, which is an anomaly, I see no need to expand. No amount of widening will fix the 4th of July traffic. Reducing the street widening could preserve the neighborhood's beauty and save costs, all the while keeping traffic flowing as it already does. Next, I want to highlight the situations of my neighbor Wendy and Greg at 903 Thayer Street and Justin at 401 Rose Street. Their homes were built over the property line or very close to the property line, not through any fault of their own, as they bought the houses as they are, and they are facing significant challenges. The city has already decided not to place sidewalks in front of Justin's house, and I think that's the right decision. Putting a sidewalk on his side of Rose would result in being wildly close to their home. Wendy and Greg are in a similar situation, and I believe that they deserve the same consideration. They already are losing beautiful trees that provide shade and enjoyment, as Wendy has described. The tree in front of their home, which my children and I admire every fall, may be the most beautiful tree in the neighborhood. I promise you, we did not talk about this ahead of time. On top of that, their parking spot is being eliminated, creating significant challenges, especially as they are dealing with health issues. Adding snow removal costs would be a heavy burden on them. The thing that bugs me the most about their situation is that the utility work doesn't even affect their home. The benefits of this project are non-existent for them, yet the costs, financial and emotional, are enormous. I ask you to consider leaving them without a sidewalk as you have done for Justin. To be clear and upfront about this fact, Wendy and Greg are my next door neighbors, and I acknowledge that if the sidewalks are removed from their side, they might not be placed in front of my house either, which I would be fine if you continue to place sidewalks on my side of the street from the alley to the park, even though that wouldn't make much logical sense, and I just ask you to use logic here. But to show that I am not arguing for my own sake, I just want to throw that out there. Although putting sidewalk in front of my house and not Wendy's and Greg's isn't logical, as I mentioned, the point I'm trying to get across is that I feel strongly that it's unfair to take so much from my neighbors when they gain nothing in return from this project. Next, Evergreen Court presents another complex issue. I previously yielded my time to Mark Whitlock, who outlined the challenges and costs associated with putting sidewalks on Evergreen, especially with the retaining walls that would be necessary. This would be complicated and expensive. To me, avoiding sidewalks here makes logical sense given the unique issues and facing the street and low foot traffic. I urge you to have a discussion about this and consider skipping Evergreen in your plan. And should you decide to skip Evergreen, I think it's also important for me to point out that the block of Pearl Street by Ryan's house, just south of Evergreen, would no longer make sense to have sidewalk there either, as it would lead to nowhere. Next, turning to Lakeshore Drive. You're proposing sidewalks for just one block, where every single resident has asked you to exclude them. 100% of them. The sidewalk will lead nowhere or connect to nowhere, and it will not enhance the overall walkability of the neighborhood. I understand that you may be thinking about future connections, and I want to be cognizant of that, but I ask you to consider excluding Lakeshore for now. If sidewalks are added to the south in the future of in a future project, it might make more sense to include Lakeshore at that time when it's part of a larger connected network. Perhaps neighbors would be willing to proactively agree to discuss that tonight. Again, these are my thoughts and only my thoughts. Your council people, your goal of making Rhinelander more walkable is admirable, and I do support that, although I'm up here fighting sidewalks. But I ask you to reconsider what walkability means in this context. Walkability doesn't require a sidewalk connecting every single house. It means that people can safely walk to services and amenities within a reasonable distance. We can achieve walkability without burdening every homeowner in our neighborhood. Adding signage on Pearl and other streets could direct pedestrians to existing sidewalks, allowing them to safely reach destinations like Hodag Park. From the north, there's already a path near the church that leads directly into the park. If more connectivity is needed, the city owns the property one house north of the school on Thayer Street, so that you could actually cut through and it would be a much more direct path to the park. Unless there's some purpose for that land that I don't know about that could be used to extend the walkability without impacting any homeowners. Some people may need to walk a block or two out of their way with this plan, but that's a small inconvenience compared to the burden placed on homeowners who will have to maintain sidewalks indefinitely. And when other solutions exist, placing that burden on residents feels a little unnecessary and excessive to me. I do understand that there is some worry about setting precedent by giving in to public pressure, but this is a unique situation, as I've heard from many of you, and it presents a special opportunity to show that this council is truly listening. What a precedent to send. You've already demonstrated responsiveness by removing sidewalks from one side of the street, and I'm asking you to consider each of these points individually as they bring their own unique challenges. Listening to the concerns of the community and making thoughtful adjustments sets a very positive precedent. It shows that the government works for the people and listens when the people speak. In closing, I want to ask you again to consider these adjustments. Reduce the street widening, remove sidewalks where they create more harm than benefit, specifically with Greg and Wendy and on Evergreen Court, and focus on creating a walkable city that connects people to destinations without unnecessary disruption. Thank you again for listening tonight and every night so far. No matter the outcome, I am personally grateful for your time, and I believe that many on this council have taken steps to make things better for all of us. As someone who believes in representative government, I think Rhinelander should be proud to have the representatives that many of you have shown to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else for public comment? Did any others have any public comment? Okay, moving on to mayor's comments, number 5. The only comment I have is if you've seen the green space at the end of Anderson Street, that is now complete. So that was a partnership with DRI where we got a couple benches put in, some trees, just to make that more useful for the public. Okay, going on from there. Number 6, public hearings, none apply for this meeting. Number 7, presentations. 7A, 2023 City of Rhinelander audit from Amanda.
Good evening. I'm Amanda Mboga. I'm the manager on the city's audit, and I'm here today to go over some of the highlights and benchmark information from the 2023 audit. We did issue 3 reports as part of the audit. We have the financial statements themselves, a reporting and insights document, which is largely required communications, and then the report on federal and state awards, which is not necessarily one that you have every year, but if you're over a certain threshold in federal dollars, then you do. All right, on the next slide, we'll have the overview. We'll go over the independent auditor's report, some financial highlights, and then a little bit on each of the other reports. So starting with the independent auditor's report, the city did receive an unmodified, or what we sometimes call a clean opinion, which is the highest level of opinion that you can get from an audit. And that indicates that we do believe the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. Management's responsibilities include the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements, as well as the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal controls. Auditor's responsibilities. The objective of the audit is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but not absolute. And a misstatement is considered material if there is a substantial likelihood that it would influence the judgment of a reasonable user of those financial statements. All right, on the next slide then, we'll go on to some financial highlights. And we'll start with the general fund and the general fund balance. So the 2023 is in blue here and 22 is in black just for comparative purposes. So you can see for 23 you did have an increase in your overall fund balance for general fund, sitting about 5.4 million. The majority of that is in the unassigned category, which means that it's available for general operations. Important to have that for cash flow and commitment contingency purposes. Nice increase there over the last years. The other category that you have is the non-spendable, and non-spendable could either be not in spendable form, or it will eventually be converted to cash, but not for so long into the future that you don't want to count that as an available resource right now. So as in previous years, the majority of that balance is the advance to the golf course, down just slightly from 2022. All right, on the next slide, some definitions there. I'll skip those for now. We kind of talked about those already. We have some summarized budget to actual information at the bottom there, though. So your actual results for the year, you did have a positive change in fund balance of the $557,000. That corresponds to that increase in total fund balance that we saw in the previous slide. Your final budget, after all amendments, came up to expected about $56,000 net income for the year. So you did have a positive gain there of about $501,000, and both positive variances in both the revenue and expenditure side. The majority though is on the revenue side, and the biggest reason for that is the investment returns, much better this year than it had been in previous years. All right, next slide. Now this is probably the key benchmark for measuring the health of a general fund fund balance. We're looking at your unrestricted fund balance, which is the unassigned in your case, and comparing that to expenditures for the year. And so the red line here is your actual over the years, and you can see that for 2023, when we do the calculation, we come up to 40.6%. And so what that means, kind of in simplified terms, is that in theory you could operate the general fund for 40% of a year without more revenues coming in, just collecting on those receivables that you had outstanding. So if you look at the increase over the past 5 years, it's a pretty dramatic increase, and I know that's something that the city has been paying attention to. 5 years ago, you were below that blue line, which is kind of our first bottom level benchmark. That's the minimum that the Government Finance Officers Association recommends. It's about 2 months in reserve. So you were below even that kind of bare bones minimum recommendation. The black line above that at 25% is the city's own internal policy. 25% is what you're shooting for, and you're above that as well. So for 23, you're more in line with those individual dots that are plotted on there. That's from our own internal Baker Tilly client data for clients of similar size to yours. So you're more in line with kind of what the average is for municipalities of your size now. All right, switch gears a little bit to the debt side of things then. General obligation debt is limited under state statutes. So we have at the top there that 29% is the portion of your legal debt limit that you have used at this point. So you do have a pretty good amount of capacity available should you need to borrow. The red line on the graph is your actual debt outstanding. The black line is the legal limit, which is tied to your equalized value. So as equalized value goes up, your debt limit goes up as well. All right, on the next slide, we have a breakdown. You can see the majority of the general obligation debt is in the governmental activities, your governmental funds. The business type activities, your enterprise funds, just a very small portion of your general obligation debt is there. The other line here is the fund balance that's available in your debt service fund. So if you were to use that to pay down your debt balances, you'd get to the 11.4 million, which is what we had plotted on the graph. So worth mentioning though that the city does also have another kind of debt, which is the revenue debt. That's attached to your enterprise funds, and it's secured by the specific revenue streams in those funds. So that does not fall under the GO debt limit, but they do have their own requirements as part of those bond indentures. We have a website on here if you're interested in more kind of debt ratios. You can run them for the city of Rhinelander and compare it to other municipalities within the state if you're interested in that. On the next slide, we have an analysis of the debt service expenditures. So this is for the governmental funds, and it's looking at your total expenditures excluding capital outlay, because that varies so much from one year to the next, it would be hard to get a trend with that in there. So removing capital outlay and just comparing the other expenditures to your debt service expenditures for the year, principal and interest. And so when we do the calculation for 2023, we get the 16.6%, and that is below the threshold here for the Navy line does the bond rating agency's recommended maximum. So in this case, you want to be below the line, and so that's a good sign. You had been kind of right on or slightly above. Over the past couple of years, I know you've worked on some refundings, getting the debt balances down, so that's reflected this year in some lower principal and interest payments. Again, we have the individually plotted dots on there. That is the average for our Baker Tilly clients of similar size. So you're also in line with those averages. All right, enterprise funds. So the water utility first here. And this being a PSC regulated utility, we have the rate of return information at the top there. Authorized rate of return is 2%. Your actual for 2023 was 0.67, so still positive, but below the authorized rate. Operating results, the top line is revenues in red, and then the bottom line is the expenses in black. So the red line being on top indicates that you have a operating income for the year. The gap in between those two numbers is needed for coverage on your non-operating expenses. So you do have things that are not reflected in here, like your interest payment on your debt, the pilot payment to the general fund, in the case of the water utility. On the next slide, we have a look at the unrestricted cash reserves. So this is looking at your unrestricted cash and comparing to your monthly revenue numbers. And the target here would be a minimum of 3 months in reserve. So you can see for all years presented, you have met that. It is quite a bit lower this year, though, than it had been. And I know that there was some planned use of cash on projects during the year. So probably not unexpected, but below where it has been in previous years. The debt coverage, now this goes back to your revenue debt and the coverage requirements that it has related to your revenues. Required is 1.25, and for 2023, the calculation is 1.45, so you did meet that requirement. You met it for all years presented here, although again, it has been decreasing over time, so it's getting closer to that 1.25. And then at the bottom there, the investment in capital assets. This is looking how you fund your infrastructure and equipment additions. So whether through equity or through debt, what we want to see here is 50% or more in equity, 50% or less in debt. And you can see you're at 51% equity, so pretty much right on the recommendation. Next slide, we have wastewater utility. And so again, the red line on the top is the revenue, black on the bottom is expenses, so you do have an operating income for the year. You can see that the gap has been kind of closing over time, so it's getting to be a smaller operating income. On the next page, we have unrestricted cash reserves again, looking at your unrestricted cash compared to monthly revenues. And this again is roughly about half of where it had been with that use of cash for projects. Wastewater had a slightly smaller monthly balance on hand than water to begin with. So when we cut that one in half, that one is getting closer now to that 3-month kind of recommendation. So still over that, but something to kind of keep an eye on to make sure it doesn't go too much further down than that. Debt coverage, again, required for wastewater is 1.1. It's a little bit less than water, and the actual is 1.29. So that's met for all years presented. And then again, equity versus debt for your funding of projects. The equity number here is 41%, debt is 59%. So wastewater is a little bit higher on the debt-funded portion of your capital assets. All right, on the next slide we have stormwater utility. And this is, we haven't had separate slides on this one before. It being a newer fund, it had been a non-major fund previously, but it's gotten big enough that in 2023 it actually calculated as a major fund. So it was set up in the financials kind of as its own opinion unit. And so we thought it was probably appropriate to give it some of the slides of its own as well. Operating results, again, the revenues on the top, we did just do 2 years. I guess we thought being a newer fund, it probably didn't pay to go back too far into the past, but we'll add on from there. So for 2023, you can see an increase in both the revenues and expenses. And you did have a net operating income, pretty consistent with the previous year there. And on the next slide, we have the unrestricted cash reserves. So again, looking for 3 months or more in reserves here. Sewer is pretty much right on 3 months. So it does not have a lot of excess cash. Stormwater has been borrowing internally for projects rather than going and issuing official debt from an external party. It's been borrowing from water and stormwater. So we didn't do the calculation of how your infrastructure was funded because that's just going to show that it's 100% through equity. The internal funding doesn't count for that, but it does owe other funds about $3.6 million at the end of 2023. And again, because all of the earnings are considered to be funding the capital assets, it is also showing an unrestricted net position as a deficit of $3.4 million. So just kind of something to keep in mind as the stormwater utility continues on, you're looking at rates for that. Eventually you will want it to repay what it has been borrowing from the other funds for projects. Non-major enterprise funds, so now we just have the golf course on this slide. Not a whole lot of change in the financial position there. It does have a small cash balance for the management company operations. The cash that it has borrowed from the general fund remained unchanged from 2022. Unrestricted net position, again, is a deficit for the golf course at about $1.9 million. All right, on the next slide, we have kind of a summary of the TIFs. I don't have a lot to go through on here. I just wanted to give you a kind of one big snapshot of how those look. TIF number 5 was removed since that was officially closed out, and it's done. Within the next 5 years, you'll be looking at kind of the mandatory terminations for TIF 6 and environmental TIF number 1. And that's the end of the financial highlights. So under other reports then, here's the report on federal and state awards. And this is the one I said you don't necessarily have every year. You have to be over, currently the threshold is $750,000. So if you're over that in federal awards, then you will need one. The state also piggybacks on top of that, and they say if you qualify for federal single audit, then they want you to test state programs as well. So programs tested for 2023 on the federal side, it was the water and waste disposal systems for rural communities. That's your rural development grant and loan program for Oneida. And we did have a couple of recommendations related to the procurement process that came out of that testing. On the state side, we had the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant, which was from the DNR, and that was related to the Timber Drive bike trail. So no findings or recommendations out of that testing. And finally, the reporting and insights letter. So as I said, this is largely required communications. Not a whole lot of change from one year to the next. Try to go through it quickly here. The internal control matters reported, these are the same as they have been in previous years for the lack of segregation of duties and financial reporting. Very, very common for governments, especially small governments, just with the limited staffing that you have. In terms of the 2023 audit communications, required communications, we did not have any new accounting standards implemented. GASB 96 on subscription-based IT arrangements was effective, but after analysis, it was deemed to be immaterial, and so we did not need to change anything in the financial statements for that. Significant estimates are listed here. Again, those are the same as they have been in previous years. And no difficulties, disagreements, or consultations to report. The non-test services that we provide are listed in the report. Those would include anything that is outside of the strict audit procedures, so preparation of the financial statements, the TIF reporting, state reporting, that kind of thing. We do have a couple of informational points, including a link to our website with more resources and upcoming GASB standards. There will be a couple that need to be evaluated for 2024. Uncorrected and corrected misstatements or audit adjustments are included. And then the very last section is the two-way communication regarding our audit, which is more forward-looking to the subsequent year audit, whereas we're required to do some planning communications, and rather than issuing a whole separate letter for that, we just roll it into this document. So again, a lot more information in that letter. Definitely encourage you to take a look at it, but those I think are the highlights from it. So that's what I had for prepared comments, but I'm happy to take questions if anyone has any.
Doesn't look like it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next presentation under 7B, Street and Infrastructure Improvement Update from Max.
Hello, everybody. Excuse me, sorry. What we have left for projects this fall is just cleaning up what was done previously. So for Oneida, we have just punch list items that we're working on, cleaning up any loose ends that are out there. Same thing on Timber, just cleaning up any loose ends that we have out there. Pelican Street is paved, and I believe there is still probably a couple loose ends out there that will be worked on before snow falls. Any questions?
How about Grand Street?
Yep, sorry, that was as part of Oneida. That one is, yep, we have a punch list for it, so the contractor is aware of what they need to do to get that done before snow falls.
Thank you. Anyone from council have any questions or concerns? Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to number 8, proclamations, none apply for this meeting. Moving on to number 9, which is a consent agenda for items A, B, C, and D.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes bills and claims in the amount of $1,734,215.95.
Kramer, second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie Michalowski.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to number 10, which is ordinances. 10A would be the second reading and or adoption of ordinance 2024-7. I refer to our city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the renaming ordinance. Last meeting, you all directed me to make some changes that Alderperson Anderson had put forth. Those have been incorporated.
I'll make a motion to accept and adopt the second reading of proposed ordinance 2024-07, an ordinance to create sections 3.10 through 3.10.17 of the City of Rhinelander Code Ordinance.
Jopek, second.
Motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Carrie Michalowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Luke Kramer. Aye. Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 10B, which would be a second reading and/or adoption of proposed ordinance 2024-8. Referred to our city administrator.
Sure. This is the, for the liquor license ordinance that Austin and Steve Sorensen wrote. I don't know if Steve or Austin has anything they'd like to add to it.
I will note that Alderperson Anderson did come to my office with some changes here. I did incorporate them, but it was not in time to get it within the packet. But I do have some of the ordinance changes that he brought to me, and I do think that they are worthwhile in getting these changed.
Mr. Anderson.
I'd like to move to table this to the next meeting so that they can be fully incorporated.
Barnett, second.
Okay, motion second. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Carrie Michalowski.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11A, discuss and/or action proposed Roman dedication. City administrator.
We had spoken, if you remember, boy, it seems like a lot of meetings ago now, where we brought you results of a survey, and basically the top finisher in that survey was the plaza in front of Deal Insurance there. So now you have an ordinance, so you can do as you see fit with that. The world is kind of your oyster, so good for you.
Mr. Anderson.
I move that the plaza at the corner of Davenport and Wide Street be renamed the George Rubin Plaza.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Barnett, second.
Okay, motion second. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Holt.
Yeah, I would like to make sure that when we codify this, that we have the exact name that we want. It was my understanding that this was more a dedication to the Roman family at large than one specific person. So I wanted to make sure we clarify the actual name.
So, Austin, if you could repeat the current motion as far as the naming.
Alderperson Anderson made a motion to rename the plaza the George Roman Plaza with a Barnett second.
I'd be willing to drop George off of there.
But Mr. Barnett.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so that's the current motion on the floor. Mr. Holt.
Are we content with the Roman Family Plaza, Roman Memorial Plaza? Just want to make sure we get this exact.
Mr. Barnett.
I think it's appropriate to rename it the Roman Family Plaza. I think that encapsulates all the feelings that people have about it, and I think that it's a good spot for it, and yeah, I think it should be the Roman Family Plaza.
That would be fine with me too.
Mr. Jopek.
Just as a note, and I'm in agreement, just one thing that I'd like to see, or I'm going to be that guy I suppose, is just to make sure we don't forget about some kind of historical marker to make sure that it is clear why we named it that, so we don't run into questions about Eisenhower Parkway or whatever like we do today. If we're going to do a historical or acknowledge something for its significance, we should make efforts in the near future to make sure that that is, I don't want to say immortalized because the sands of time, but something that people can read when they visit, that they will see and they will know what Roman Plaza means and why it's there. It's not just a plaza, then it's actually a meaningful gesture.
Ms. Michalowski.
I guess my feeling is that I think it'd be more appropriate to name it Roman Memorial Plaza. I don't necessarily think the word family needs to be in there, but it is a memorial, so I think I think that wording would make more sense to me. Roman Memorial Plaza.
Mr. Holt?
Yeah, I'd second that. I think Roman Memorial Plaza is a very good name, concise.
Mr. Anderson, are you willing to change your original motion?
Yes.
Mr. Barnett, you second.
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion? Not seeing clerk, can you reread the current motion?
All right, almost done typing it here. Anderson motion to amend the original amended motion to name it Roman Memorial Plaza, with Barnett second.
Okay, please take the roll call.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11B, discuss and/or action Messer Street design. First, I'll turn it over to our city administrator.
Sure. So, like we said at the last meeting, like I said, was what the decision you'd like to make, where you'd like to go with this is fine. We need to make one pretty much now, in order for Town and Country Engineering to get the design done and get the project let for the best bid prices. We need to get it out and done by January. So the clock is slowly reaching midnight here. So we do have Brian Burquist here from Town and Country Engineering. Mark couldn't be here tonight. We do have Brian here in case you have any questions.
Mr. Anderson?
I placed a proposed resolution on everybody's desk earlier that tries to provide a rationale for whatever action we're taking and basically adopts the engineer's recommendation for a scaled-back project. I've added the exception of not removing the sidewalk on the east side of Messer Street, since it has sidewalk on 90% of it already. So I'd like to move adoption of that resolution. Oh, I guess the other thing is I left space on there for additions, subtractions, or changes, as I assume there will be some discussion should we want to vary from that. But I would move adoption of it at this point.
Is there a second? Okay, so it's been 3 seconds. Your motion dies. Mr. Barnett?
I just want to make a couple of statements. First, I want to say thank you to every single one of you that have come out diligently practicing your right to speak to council in a fair and intelligent way. I think you guys did a great job of presenting your concerns. I think you guys did a great job of keeping the conversation extremely civil, which is not what we've had in the past with some other situations. And the fact that you guys are here now and that you have been here practicing that right of yours to get up in front of that podium and speak to your alder people, I commend you for that. I do not know how the vote's going to go tonight, but I will tell you this. I have always stated that I got elected into my seat by doing what the constituents want. And seeing as how this proposal is not going to really make a major negative impact, I am going to vote the way you guys elected us to vote. Thank you.
Where do you guys want to go from here? Mr. Anderson?
Well, I want to make some comments on the situation in general. That I lived for many years in Springfield, Ohio, which has been quite famous in the news lately. But one of the things they had there was an ordinance that required everybody to construct and maintain their own sidewalk. And if they didn't, it would be assessed on the property. We're not doing anything of that sort here. We're trying to provide a benefit. And sidewalks are generally considered a benefit to a city and to the property. I recognize that not everybody feels that way, and also recognize that some of these streets are built on a totally different design concept. Let's say a more suburban design than is usual in a city. And I think we have to make some adjustments to correspond to that. My proposal is partly based on looking around the neighborhood and observing that Messer Street is much more built for sidewalks than Evergreen or Lakeshore, and that it's appropriate to keep sidewalks on Messer Street. I would be open to reducing some of the sidewalks and not having sidewalks, or reducing the sidewalks on Lakeshore and Evergreen, since they are so different and in the way they were built and the way they've been lived in over the years. I would like to hear from the engineer about the widths of the streets. I don't think Mark Barden's proposal totally made that clear, and I'd like to have some information about that.
Sure.
Good evening, Council. My name is Brian Berquist. I work with Mark and Max on things kind of behind the scenes, and I've actually been working on city projects since 2004 when I started at Town and Country. So I do have some background on past decades, and your ordinance, of course, which you're all familiar with. The memo, the design memo there is kind of intentionally plain on the widths, given the comments and concerns from the community there. Your ordinance, as it currently sits, does call for 36 feet for this scenario. That number is based on a couple just arithmetic answers. Generally, 36 works out decently for 2 travel lanes and 2 parking lanes on each side, and that just adds up to 36. It's a pretty typical number throughout the communities we work in, and you have used that on your projects in the past.
Looking at the map that Mark provided, it looks as if Rose and Messer are wider than the others. Is that a fact?
I don't think that's significantly different. They're all about 30 feet existing. Rose is 35.
Mr. Holt?
Thank you. So I think one of the most important things right now is we do have to make a decision, and we should start from the positions that are clearly agreed upon. One of which is that the infrastructure needs to be updated. That needs to happen. That is necessarily going to involve the loss of some trees, because some of those trees are related to the trouble with the infrastructure. I had multiple residents of this neighborhood call me in the last few weeks and talk about sewer backups over the summer in July that were significant. And it is our responsibility as a council to the future of the city in terms of maintaining its infrastructure. So that's something that can be agreed upon. I did not drive the neighborhood with anybody else, but I did drive it on my own. And I'm not a civil engineer. And so all I can do is present my layman's eyes to what I saw. I'll start with Rose Street. I trust you, but I looked at it and said I don't know that I could put sidewalks there reasonably. It looked like a best of wishes if you have to. But the main thought that I had driving through there is what's the overall goal? So I do think that a more walkable city is a valuable and agreed upon goal generally in terms of broadly and what we want for the future of our city. I think that we are investing an awful lot in Hodag Park, and so we want to secure some degree of ingress into that park. We wanted, the point was to make it connected to the other parts of the city. I'm not sure that sidewalks on Evergreen Court or Lakeshore advance that. I would say that I would not be in favor of widening the streets. We want a more walkable city. Wider streets mean faster traffic. That would suggest to me that we should leave them as is. So I'm not sure that advances our goal too much of getting to a conclusion here, but those would be my comments. Rose Street seemed very problematic between Thayer and Messer Street in terms of sidewalks. There are other avenues of ingress into Hodag Park other than that. I wouldn't widen the streets. I would leave them as is, but I think it's an established point that we do need to do infrastructure upgrade. So that's a given. And other than that, I don't have any strong positions. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
Well, I had one more question for the engineer. The things that are marked cheap existing sidewalk on Pearl Street and Messer, does that mean the sidewalks will be reconstructed or just kept as they are?
Generally, that would be reconstructed. It's just that there is sidewalk there, and there could be sidewalk there at the end of the project. Relative to the comments about the underground infrastructure, many of the surfaces out there would have to be removed in order to get down to the sewer and water lines themselves. So the keep existing generally just refers to there would still be sidewalk on that side. It would have to be replaced.
Mr. Anderson?
I would like to move that we modify the project by keeping the underground infrastructure plan the same, by not widening any streets, by having sidewalks on both sides of Pearl again and both sides of Messer, which seems to provide access to the park from the rest of the city, and the sidewalks along Hodag Park. I guess that covers most of the things we've mentioned.
Hold second.
So just as a point of clarification, on the section of Messer, you only want to keep sidewalks where they're currently at? Or do you want to run the whole block?
I would do them on both sides. They are in part on both sides now.
Correct, but just for a point of clarification, do you want that whole block to have them, or just the current properties that have them?
Between Rose and Doyle, 2 blocks, I guess. And then Pearl Street connecting with that. And then only on one side of the Rose and Messer by the park.
Okay, I'm guessing everyone's following that based on the map. So there is a motion, is there a second? Oh, yep, Mr. Holt, any discussion? Mr. Jopek?
Does that incorporate the exclusion of Lakeshore Evergreen then? So we're just talking Messer, Pearl?
That's the intention.
Okay.
And technically Rose Parkside, correct?
Yeah, my intention was that I did not see.
Oh, Mr., if you could turn your mic.
I apologize. Oh, yes, that was my intention. Driving down roads between Thayer and Messer did not, the closeness of the houses to the streets, and I was thinking in terms of if I lived in those houses, or one of those houses, that would be very problematic. So yeah, my impression of Gerald's motion was that it excluded sidewalks on Rose Street between Thayer and Messer.
But included by the park on Rose.
Along the park, yeah.
Correct. Okay, Ms. Mikulowski?
I don't necessarily think we need sidewalks on both sides of Messer. I think one side is sufficient. And I agree with David that Rose between Messer and Thayer's there's not enough room for a sidewalk there, in my opinion. So I'm fine with not having it on Lakeshore or Evergreen in particular, but I would suggest just one side of the street on Messer. And I don't think that we necessarily need two of them on Pearl from Messer to Thayer as well. I think one will do.
Ms. Anderson?
Well, if we have sidewalks there now, why lose them, would be my question. But I also had another question for the engineer about Hoday Park Drive.
I'm assuming with the Hodag Park Drive, you're talking the connection from Thayer
Thayer
to the
Messer.
park.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you repeat
Is there
that?
some engineering reason why the engineers wanted to redesign that intersection there
Which intersection? Sorry.
by the park?
Is that Hodag Park Drive and Messer? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, just because it's so big, there's so much roadway there, it just leaves more interpretation for traffic. So we're just trying to narrow it down to make it more, I guess, of a clear path as to where people need to drive, essentially.
When you say narrow down, what does that mean?
Just kind of, we would take either one of those streets, Hodag Park Drive or Messer, and we'd just make it a more defined path. So instead of it being, like that huge radius there, we'd kind of narrow that up a little bit and just square it up. If you've been on either like Conroe and Oneida or King and Oneida, that same kind of concept, same thing we did at Pinos and Stevens. We just narrow it up so it's just going to tee right into that intersection, basically.
Mr. Holt?
Yeah, I wanted to speak to Carrie's comment about not needing sidewalk on both sides of Messer, and I agree with her. My goal driving around the neighborhood, my thought would be that the goal should be if the neighborhood speaks with a voice that says they would like fewer sidewalks, then we need to accomplish the goal of walkability and access to the park, but we don't need to be excessive in it. And I second that. And as far as my second for the motion goes, if Gerald would like to modify that, I would certainly be in favor of it.
Mr. Luter?
Yeah, I think it's important for us to consider the folks that do live on Pearl and Rose Street. I don't know how we can, in good conscience, put a sidewalk on a street which would keep them from parking in their driveway. I don't know if we have a city ordinance regarding parking or overhang on the sidewalk, but there is a state statute that would be in place, and Whereas somebody that owns a Honda Civic might be able to park in their driveway. Somebody who owns a 1500 or a large pickup truck or van may not be able to. So my concern would be, why would we put our citizens, the people of this neighborhood, why would we inconvenience them if that's not really something that has to happen? If we can incorporate a sidewalk off of Thayer Street that can access Hodag Park, and part of our grant money is for putting a sidewalk along Messer Street on the park side of the street, I would say, why would we want to inconvenience everybody else in that neighborhood with sidewalks if they're not being used now? I mean, some of the sidewalks on Messer Street don't go the entire length of a city block or of the block. So in that case, why even have the sidewalk there at all? I mean, none of the sidewalks that we were proposing to put in that neighborhood would connect to anything. So it's just as far as I'm concerned, we wouldn't be doing our due diligence by putting sidewalks on streets where people can't park in their own driveway.
Mr. Anderson?
On Pearl Street between Messer and Thayer, my understanding is there's sidewalks already on both sides. If we don't widen the street and just replace the sidewalks where they are, does that move it into people's yard any further than it is now?
I don't believe so, no.
I just hate to give up any sidewalks that are already there. And on Messer, it looks like that would mostly just be completing the gaps in some cases, but there is already sidewalks there, and the whole block is built in a different way from Evergreen and Lakeshore, so that sidewalks seem a whole lot more feasible. So I want to stick with that.
Max?
Can I just make one comment about the motion that's on the table right now? We have $400,000 in DOT funding that's contingent specifically on sidewalk on the park side on Rose and Messer. We also need to get those widened to 36 feet face to face. If you remember what Mark said at the last meeting, DOT is usually pretty good about adjusting that a little bit. They're not so great about adjusting that narrower.
That's why I asked at first how wide they are.
So it's about 35 is what Matt said.
So adding a foot.
What's that?
So it would add 1 foot.
Approximately.
Well, and I would argue with those two streets in question, vast majority we could encroach into the park. Versus, I mean, the only spot would be the one block of Rose between Thayer and Messer where it'd be into, the right-of-way in the house section.
But that's not required by DOT, is it?
I don't believe so. I believe it's just in front of the park.
So just to kind of be clear of the motion on the floor, as I understand it, is you're looking to keep the existing sidewalk on Messer, which is going from Doyle to Rose would be complete sidewalk. Pearl Street from Thayer to Messer would be complete sidewalk on both sides. Messer Street from Pearl all the way to Hodag Park Drive would have a sidewalk. And then Rose Street from Messer to the boat landing would have a sidewalk.
On the park side.
Correct. So that would be the current location for sidewalks with keeping all the roads at the current width is the current motion on the floor. Mr. Jopek?
But if it's at 35, and I'm just clarifying, Rose and Messer need to be at 36 in order to get that funding or whatever.
Correct.
So there'd be a foot widening. Does just the Messer Street that faces the park, so it doesn't need to be the entirety of Messer, it could be 36 feet next to the park, and then once you drive down Messer towards Pearl, for instance, the road does not need to be 36 feet wide.
Correct. So it would be the two sections of Messer and Rose that are adjacent to the park.
Okay.
So if you want to take opportunity of that funding, you'd have to amend the motion to expand that section of roadway to 36.
Yeah, I move to amend the motion to expand Rose and Messer on both sides of the park to 36th Street. And while I'm making the motion, I guess I'd also like to say, leave it up to the engineers to figure out what to do with that intersection with Hodag Park Drive.
The only other thing I would question you, Mr. Anderson, is do you want to make a connection sidewalk at the Hodag Park Drive? That way you have 2 points of egress into the park, one in the center, one on the far side.
I would say yes at this point.
So the Hodag Park Drive, they add a sidewalk there on the one side that's currently listed. That way you have 2 points of walkability into Hodag Park.
But not on Fremont or Rose up to there.
Correct, just on Hodag Park Drive.
That's my motion. That would be my amendment at this point.
I'll accept that as for amending my second.
Okay, so that's the new motion and second. Ms. Michalowski?
I guess I'm just confused. On Hodag Park Drive,
Correct, so if you look on page 71, it's kind of a little bit of a hook looking.
yeah, but that, to me, looking at the legend, is adding a sidewalk, not keeping a sidewalk.
Correct, that would be adding, but it would give you 2 points of egress into the park.
The park's on the other side of the street.
To the park. So from there, you would have 2 ways to walk into the park.
Okay, I see what you're under, I
Yeah, so
understand
then you
what
would
you're
have a
saying now.
crosswalk on Messer to the sidewalk at the park.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I guess I want to clear up the messer between Rose and Doyle. It's proposed to have it on both sides of the street?
For sidewalk, my
Yeah.
understanding is only on the park side.
Well, there's not a park side. There's either Thayer
Oh, wait,
or there's the
Messer.
lake.
So Messer and Pearl would be both sides. And Pearl to Doyle would be only the one side facing Thayer.
So just the sidewalks that are currently there, keep those.
Yes, but do the whole block, don't do a partial block.
Okay, so from Pearl to Doyle on the riverside, no sidewalks would go there.
Correct.
All right, I'm good with that.
I'll accept that interpretation.
Okay, Austin, you have the great responsibility of trying to repeat that motion.
So, I just have a quick question. So, just so I'm clear, you're talking about putting the sidewalk on Messer Street on the lake side of the street only? So would the sidewalk on the east side of the street then be removed from the little areas that go, because it doesn't go all the way to the end of the block?
Give me 1 second, I'm gonna go take Tara's computer and use the mouse course, to show.
Okay.
Terrace computer.
Those sidewalks.
Currently already here on the one side. On this block, you'll be completing both sides with sidewalks versus the partial sidewalks we currently have. On this section, you have sidewalks on both sides, which are already currently there. Oh, there you go. You put sidewalks on Rose by the park and Messer by the park. And then we would have a connection sidewalk here. This section of Messer and this section of Rose would be widened to 36 feet to take opportunity of the grant funding. That's how I understand the current motion.
On the city, park side, right?
The current motion states that it would be up to the engineer. So if you guys want to amend that to park side versus engineering, you can.
I do have it as a amended motion to expand Rose and Messer on the side of the park, and Holt did second that. So I think I have the motion whenever you want it.
So that would be then the motion on the floor. So you'd have 2 points of walkability into the park, Everything else will remain the same except for the sidewalks that were stated by the computer cursor. Any other discussion?
Well, that doesn't address the sidewalks that are proposed on Evergreen or on Lakeshore, though, unless the proposal was to remove those or not have them part of the
The
project.
motion would be for only the sidewalks stated, so those would not be put in, per the motion currently.
So not on Evergreen, not on Lakeshore, not on Fremont, and not on roads between Messer and Thayer.
Correct. So kind of piggybacking off of what Mr. Holt said, you're making the park connected, you're making it walkable with the smallest amount of impact to the residents who own properties there, which would also result in a cost savings to the city for other infrastructure. Mr. Jopek?
The depth of the sidewalks that we'd be putting in on Messer, or that would be being put in to match even the ones that exist already, the depth does not change on that, right? It's not going to push further into yards or like according to ordinances or anything like that. Like they will be at the current depth that they are to match continuously. I know they're going to replace the sidewalks, but that sidewalk depth, will it change?
I refer to max just because I don't know if the alignment of the road changes slightly.
I don't think we were widening that section, right? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, but yeah, just making sure that the sidewalk, like when you
If
go
we're
over there
not-
now, there's the sidewalk that is on Messer. The sidewalk, when it's replaced, won't go any deeper for any other ordinance reason that exists.
We can, if you guys want to include that in your motion, you can, but if the road's not widening, then the sidewalk probably would not widen.
Okay, perfect.
Mr. Barnett?
I'd like to make sure that the people that this is going to be affecting understand the motion on the table. It sounds,
Lakeshore and Evergreen would remain the same width of road and no sidewalks. Correct.
And that also includes the Pearl Street from Evergreen to Messer, correct?
Correct. Same size width of street, no sidewalks.
no? No?
To be clear for the whole general here, you're basically talking there will be a sidewalk addition on Boarding Park Drive on this side of the street, park side of Nasser, park side of Rose, and then keep the existing sidewalks but replace them where they are. So no other sidewalks incorporated except for Boarding Park Drive. Okay.
Now, since I said that I was voting for the constituents, I do believe that there have been some massive compromises and trying to make everybody happy on both sides. I do believe that this compromise is a good one. So if, as the constituents that have elected us, are you good with the compromise that we have put forth?
Point of
Point of order. So, Mr. Barnett, keep in mind, Mr. Barnett, this is a meeting of common council. It's not a meeting at this point with the public. So keep that in mind. That's not how the operation is ran at this point. So, Mr. Jopek.
I had bullet points and I just resolved that I was going to just listen, and I feel like we're getting somewhere. Kind of speaking to what Mr. Barnett was saying, compromise between the present and the future is a core tenet of good governance, and so that's where we sit on this council, and we have a responsibility to the future of Rhinelander as someone who sits and digs through 1914 newspapers about whether or not to reinstitute a mill that burned down. Those kind of things come up, and our past leaders looked to the future of what Rhinelander would be, and I doubt they saw it would be as big as it is now. And so we have a pretty big burden here to shoulder. And so I think it's important to know that for us, we do have to compromise because we do have a foot in the present with where you're at, but we also have to think into the future. To this extent, I do feel that the members of this council, as well as Mark Barden, have attempted to compromise in good faith, and I think we're close, if not there, with the strategic goals of the city, which are, many of us have acknowledged, a walkable city, a city that people can get access to parks. In this case, I think the plan presented above gives multiple opportunities for a walk path for anybody who is riding a bike, walking, whatever it may be, to have access to Hodag Park, which, as we've admitted, is growing in popularity. It's only going to get bigger as we go with water, splash pad and whatnot. And so I do think it is important to know, because there were comments made in the past, that we were not compromising, that we were maybe not totally hearing, or not we were applying ordinances without concern. And I hope we are all here in agreement that we are listening. We are trying to find that way. And so to that end, I just want to confirm, because there seems to be some confusion on the Messer Street, there will be sidewalk on Messer Street to Doyle, all the way down on one side. Can we confirm what side that is going to be?
Okay, so Messer Street, per our understanding, from Hodag Park to Rose would be on the city park side. From Rose to Pearl would be on both sides in the exact same spot that you currently have sidewalk, but it will run the whole block. From Pearl to Doyle, there would be sidewalk on the one side where you currently have sidewalk. Okay.
Okay.
Does City Council have any other discussion? Not seeing clerk, take the roll call.
Luke Kramer. Aye. David Holt.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie McLowski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11C, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-126. I refer it to our city clerk.
What were we on? 1 second.
It's the city clerk, city fee schedule.
Oh,
Point of privilege, please, sir. I was wondering, because a number of people are going to be leaving, if we could take just a couple minutes.
Sure, so let's do a 5-minute recess. 34, we're back in session. We are now on 11C, which, since we tabled the one ordinance, it would be appropriate to table this till we have an answer for that ordinance. Everyone okay with that? Okay. Moving on to D, discuss and/or action inspection department contracts with surrounding towns. Refer to our city administrator.
And I would take you right over to our fire chief here for the discussion. Basically, as I see it, and Brian, I don't want to step on you, you correct me if I'm wrong, but honestly, it breaks down to this. We don't have the person in place to be able to run the UDC inspections for us, and it's become double tough for us to do the townships as well. Brian, I'll let you take it, though.
Yeah, so Patrick pretty much just said it. The mayor said at the last meeting, we need to probably drill down and pay more attention. It gives us more time, more attention to pay at the city level. We just cannot fill this position. We've put out a job posting that soaked for a little over a month, and we had 30 applicants that applied for the position, but not one of them was even close to being qualified. Some of them had some construction background and stuff, but nobody had the UDC credentials that we need. So even if we did bring somebody in, to get those credentials and stuff takes quite a bit of time. It's not worth it for us to string the townships along at this point. We need to figure out what we're going to do for the city and take care of the city. So I would recommend that we let the townships know that we can no longer provide that service for them, starting the 1st of next year.
And then we also received notification from the town of Newbold ending it from their point of view, first of the year too.
Yep.
Mr. Holt? Oh, sorry, sorry. Good point. So we are looking for some direction with this.
Do you need a motion?
Correct.
A motion to authorize the fire chief to inform the counties the townships that we're no longer providing service after the new year?
Correct.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion on said motion? Mr. Anderson?
Should that come from the fire chief or from the administrator?
Well, the fire chief is also in charge of the inspection department, and I'm pretty confident the two could work together to make it happen. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Mr. Luter?
Yeah, I guess my only question was, contractually, do we have enough time to be able to give them notice for this to be in effect as of the 1st of the year?
Correct, per contract.
Perfect.
So, okay, motion second. Not seeing any discussion. Please call the roll call.
David Holt.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11E, discuss and/or action regarding the sex offender registry board. We'll refer to our city administrator.
And I'm going to refer to Austin or Steve, whichever one wants to take it. Basically, you have a board here that has nobody on it. Believe Austin needs 5 people to serve on it, and we get no takers every time we've advertised for it. None at all. So the thought was that council might be able to serve as 3 of those people. Can't do 5, it'd be a quorum.
I don't know if one of you two want to take it.
Well,
yeah.
you're required by statute to have this board, and of course, it doesn't become a problem until somebody makes an appeal, and then there's nobody to hear it. And if the council would serve as the board, the problem is there's nobody for the person to go to if the council says no. So statutorily, somehow you've got to figure out how to get 5 people onto this board, and we do have a current request in. So we really do need to get going on getting this 5-person board. And therefore, the concept was, well, if we had 3 council members that were willing to serve, and then we could find 2 instead of trying to find 5, that may be a good alternative.
Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, you kind of answered the question that I had. I would think that 3 council people would be great on a board, and finding 2 more people, although it's been deemed extremely difficult to do up to this point, might be a little easier finding 2 people. So is there I just want to make sure, because I don't want to get for rules tonight. Is there, can we like confront people and ask them to be on the board or contact the mayor to be on the board?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the clerk's office has made a form where anyone interested on any board serving, they fill out their name, their contact, and whatever they're interested in. So the best would be to go to the clerk, fill out that form, just to keep it standard for all boards and commissions.
And the form is also located on our website too, so they can fill it out online and it goes straight to me.
Okay.
So the only question I have for you, Steve, is, so a 5-member board, you need 3 to have quorum. So if all 3 happen to be city council members, they can conduct business if all 3 attend. But would that, from a legal point of view, have an issue if the person appeals it, since that board is 3 members of council?
Well, the interesting thing is the 3 members of council could not sit on the appeal to the council. You'd still have 5 members of the council. You wouldn't need those 3 members of the council, so you'd never have a problem.
So, but there's something to think of. So, Ms. Mikulowski?
I'm just wondering, is there any type of credentials that anybody has, or they just need to be a resident of the city of Rhinelander?
I believe just a resident currently as it sits.
Yeah, currently by ordinance it says the board shall consist of 5 citizens. That is it.
Okay.
So, Mr. Holt?
For the council to hear an appeal, can they do that with only 5 members? Because that's not quorum.
Oh, that is a good point.
No, you could have a quorum because the 3 members that are sitting there, they can't control the vote of the council.
Okay.
So you don't have a negative quorum, I guess is what we're looking for. So you could, one of those 3 people could still be here and still be voting and still be talking, right?
Mr. Jopek?
Last time we had talked about the potential of ethics, the ethics committee kind of like functioning as a temporary oversight of this, so that then it would lead up to an appeals from the city council, but we kind of tabled that until you were here to kind of talk through, because I wasn't sure, I didn't want to encroach on that. Is that something that would be an option?
No, because the ethics committee, by its rules, cannot be on any other committee.
Okay.
So it's not that the
Glad I
ethics
said
committee,
something.
it's just that they couldn't be on the ethics committee anymore.
Okay, thank you.
So, Ms. Mikulowski?
So I guess what I would suggest is having the 3 council, and I think between now and the next meeting, we could drum up 2 more people to be on this board. So I guess I would like to maybe table this until next meeting to make up the board.
So the only other things to keep in mind is, per all of our other boards, how the board members of council get appointed is different on all of them. The length of term is different on all of them. Is it just mayor appointment, or is it, you guys? You have some boards where some of you are liaisons. So are you just looking for us to kind of make a rough draft and then come back to the next meeting?
Well, I mean, it kind of says that in the statute as to how the terms would be, 54321. So, I mean, how they get appointed, I'm assuming you would appoint, because you appoint to most all of the boards.
Yeah, the mayor would appoint the 3-year person, the 2-year person, the 1-year, I mean, he would make all those appointments.
Yeah.
And he would give it to you saying, here's my recommendation as to who's doing which terms and what their names are, and you would vote A or nay, because you don't have to create the board, it's already in it's already in the ordinances.
Right.
So just to keep this moving, if we are looking to do the 3 aldermen, any of you like to volunteer?
I don't mind.
So that Ms. Mikulowski, Barnett, Mr. Kramer. So at the next meeting, I would be doing the appointment for those 3, and hopefully we get 1 or 2 civilians too.
Sounds good.
So anything else on this topic? Okay. Moving on to what is now called new business. 12A, discuss and/or action proposed resolution, city's policy for contacting the city attorney. I return it to our city administrator.
Certainly, I've been approached, I've been approached by a couple members of council about controlling costs. controlling costs in general fund, controlling costs through the city. Been approached specifically about the gentleman to my left. This is very weird. I kind of want you to leave so I can talk about you. But, Mr. Yeah. No, you can stay. It's more fun if you stay, Steve. So, Mr. The city attorney costs us $2.95 an hour if we call him, if we interact with him, anything like that. One of the things that we've done, I would say over the last year, is with the exception of Brian and Lloyd, basically I've had city staff come to me and kind of use it as a check. When I first got here, every answer was call the city attorney, call the city attorney, call the city attorney. And I understand that you didn't have an administrator for 5 or 6 months. So this is one way, and I've had this in other communities where in the other communities I had it was the village manager or the city manager, whatever I was in that, and the village president or the mayor were the only two that were allowed to contact the city attorney. So that's what I basically put forward here. I left it that it would be in the ordinance, in the resolution that I was asked to write. It'd be the mayor, the council president, the city administrator. Brian and Lloyd need to contact them because they both have ticket writing powers. They're both going to need to have kind of a little more unfettered access because of that. They're going to run into things really quick. So that would be the idea. If in here it says that if you have an issue with the ethics, you can contact. You think I'm doing something unethical, or Tara's doing something unethical, you can contact the city attorney right away. That's kind of waived. But otherwise, it basically just provides a check and balance with this. And it says that the alder persons shall contact either the council president or the mayor to get authorization to contact the city attorney. It's relatively simple. It's obviously up to you folks, but we found cost savings doing it this way. It's been nice because it kind of challenges people to think and to grow instead of just, we're going to turn to Steve, we're going to turn to Steve, we're going to turn to Steve. We still call him enough, but it has kind of checked that a little bit.
Correct. And I was the one who pushed to have the council president added as a check and balance between kind of the two branches of government. Mr. Holt?
Yeah, I appreciate having council president included in that. The one sort of, I guess, tweak or clarification that I would add is that I think that any of those requests should go to, it shouldn't be, it should be specified that it should go to at least two of the three of you. So that if it's a question that lends itself towards leaving one of them off, let's say, yeah. but that there should always be two, whether it's the council president and the city administrator, or the mayor and the city administrator, or whatnot. That we should always have. It can be three, but it has to be two. To stave off any potential optics that suggest that a single person is blocking something. If at least two people see it.
Okay. And one thing in here to note too is, so when I wrote the fire chief and the police chief in there, they can only handle their thing. So Tara couldn't go and ask Brian or ask Lloyd unless it was dealing specifically with them. She would have to come and see me. So that's how that works. We need it for those two because, like I said, they are going to run into the issues the fastest. So that's why they're included in on there. But I agree, you're right with the two out of the three.
Sorry.
Mr. Joe.
Is there something that we need to add onto that ordinance to make sure that that's a part of, or that resolution?
I think you'd want to add something on there. It says 2 out of 3. I'm not exactly sure. Alderperson Holt might be a better person to respond to that. You'd be better.
Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, I'm on the other side of that. I don't see any reason to make it more complicated So I would move approval of the resolution as presented.
Okay, so there's a motion, is there a second? Okay, not seeing.
Second, I'll second, but I have a question.
Okay, so there's a motion and second by Ms. Mikulowski. Ms. Mikulowski?
Just regarding like emails, if an alderperson wants to send the mayor and the administrator and copy in the attorney, is that okay yet? Or does that, I don't know how the billing with that works. I mean, it's not necessarily to them, but it's just to make them aware of it.
I'd like to comment on the whole issue, but I'll answer that question first. I wouldn't bill for something I'm copied on unless it was directed to me.
Okay.
In other words, if you sent a message to me that had the other two copied, or other 3 or 4, then I would answer it and it would get billed. Personally, I think it's a horrible idea, and I think the administration knows that, because I think it does disagree with some of the context. Fiscally, I think it's a wonderful idea, because I don't have the luxury of not billing. If it was just me and it wasn't a firm that I worked for, I could have the luxury of not billing. And I do at times not bill. The other thing I would say to you all as council persons, take advantage when I'm here. I mean, I'm here usually by 2 o'clock on the dates. And if nobody comes and sees me, I work on other stuff. But if somebody comes, and you're probably going to get billed for most of that time anyway, because somebody's coming in and talking, we're getting things done. And that's kind of the way I've tried. And in fact, I've even done the municipal courts now. So they're going to try to put all my court cases on Mondays, because that was killing us, because I'm driving up here. And again, I think you all know that my contract says I don't charge you all the way from Neenah up here. I don't charge you for any travel time. I do charge mileage from here to my cabin, but not back home. So I've done everything I can to lower the cost. But please call them and talk to them if there's issues, because it's going to take twice as much to solve a problem than to prevent a problem. And that's the only 2 cents that I would leave, is it's a lot easier to solve it before it occurs than after the fact. That's my concern. But they'll tell you too. I told them once before, I'm too expensive. So, and I know that. I'm not an idiot about that. But it's what it is.
Mr. Holt?
Yeah, I wanted to get a little clarification from something you said, Steve. You said you thought this was a terrible idea. You talked about the policy, establishing a policy. Are you saying that that's a bad idea?
No, I think it's a terrible idea that I can't give you advice all the time free. I mean, I'd love to do that.
Okay, because I thought you were giving legal advice that this was a terrible idea for us to do this. And does this have to be an ordinance, or are we talking about a policy?
You're talking about policy. It's not
This
an
is a
ordinance.
policy, okay.
Yeah. For heaven's sake,
So it's just, it's important to clarify what we're talking about when we use those two terms.
I did run this past, and this feels really weird saying this with you sitting here. I ran it past the League of Wisconsin Municipalities legal team, and had a conversation with a gentleman from there, and they said communities do this. This is not unheard of.
And they went on to say that you should just call them for all the advice.
Actually, not really, but.
Mr.
No, I'm fine with it. I mean, from a legal point of view, it's very legal.
All right, good, thank you. One thing I wanted to follow up with that is that this is an issue that predates this council. I can say that very factually. So in terms of policy, to me, it's we're not pointing fingers. We're trying to establish policy. Policy goes past 2-year election cycles. So, you know, it's not about anybody individually. It's about trying to create better policy for taxpayers, because and I have, this has been an issue that I've tried to raise since I've been on council, is that the length of time of meetings, for example, has a cost to it. The way we conduct ourselves has a cost. Yes, I understand, and I'm talking at the same time so that the irony is not lost on me. But I do think it bears reminding that our behavior can increase costs.
Any other discussion? With the spirit of that, all those in favor, please say aye.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion and second.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. You seconded.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
Yes, aye.
No, you don't.
No, it's policy. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, abstain, motion passes. All right, moving on to 12B, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-131. This is regarding the Cobblestone Hotel for their incentive payment based on the development agreement.
This isn't in your typical resolution form. Wendy and I talked about this, and we want to make sure that I's are dotted, T's are crossed. So that's why it's in the form they want it. So you might just see a number up there. It doesn't look the same as always, but it is a resolution. Basically, this is for Cobblestone for when they get their certificate of occupancy per the developer's agreement.
Mr. Anderson?
I move approval of the proposed contract with Board of Commissioners of Public Lands as presented in the packet.
Mikulowski, second.
Motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Luke Kramer. Aye. Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Bob Luder.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 12C, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-132. So this is pretty much an interface to connect our fire department with the county for the two programs could talk to each other. If, Brian, if that's what I got out of it
Yeah,
in layman's
that's-
terms. So
There's a lot of acronyms.
Yeah, it's pretty much it. It's to create an interface so that our program that we use right now interacts with what the county is using on their dispatching, so we get real times and updates and stuff like that. And eventually, if we decide to, we can put that on the vehicles itself. So in there for the monies, we appropriated our $6,000 in our budget for this year. We ended up cutting the other $6,000 last year during budget cuts, but I do have some money left in borrowing from the $100,000. I'd like to use that to purchase this interface.
Mikulowski, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-132, approving the quote from Tyler Technologies for the purchase and installation of the CAD-CFS export interface for the City of Rhinelander Fire Department for $12,080.
Felton, second.
motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Luke Kramer. Aye. Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Bob Luder.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 12D, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-133, referred to our city clerk.
So this is a grant program that I'm looking for council to approve the mayor to sign this memorandum of understanding. Basically, we get $750 for a grant I purchased this year. Kind of hard to describe, but when we have people who are visually impaired or impaired in other ways, when they want to go vote on election day on the machines, they have to use a program within the machine that locks up the machine so they can vote, whether it's by braille, whether it's by any other sorts of way. and it locks up the machine where voters are not able to feed their ballots into the machine. They have to put it in a separate box connected to the machine, and a lot of people, especially nowadays, are kind of wary of doing something different with their ballots than they're used to. So I went ahead and I purchased 2 of these machines, one for each of our Dominion machines that we have. That is an external screen, so if we do have someone who is visually impaired, they can use this separate screen to vote, and it does not interfere with the main one. So it just keeps things very efficient, and it also makes us a much more accessible city for our voters. So this is a program that reimburses about half the cost of what that was.
Barnett, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-133, approving, authorizing, and directing the mayor to sign a request for funds and memorandum of understanding with Wisconsin Elections Commissions for the 2023 Accessible Voting Equipment Sub-Grant Reimbursement Program.
Jopek, second.
Motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Jopek?
I was just going to say, Austin, that's pretty cool. I don't know, just a really awesome thing that you thought to do that and to put in the time to figure out the grant reimbursement and everything. It's just a very cool thing that you did. So I just want to praise that.
Any other discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Carrie Michalowski.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 12E, discuss and/or action regarding proposed resolution 2024-134. It's a pay application for some work done on Pelham Street lift station for $40,973. I'm assuming we're just paying what we already planned to do.
Yeah, so this is, we're just paying for, typical of these projects, just stored materials. So this is the pumps. They got the pumps in stock. They're sitting securely at their facility, so until they can physically get in and do the work while they're waiting for other material, we just pay. If you look in here, we're paying 90% of the cost of the pumps.
Mr. Holt?
I will make motion to approve proposed resolution 2024-134, approve and play application number 3 from August Winter and Sons for work completed on the 2023 Pelham Street lift station project for $40,973.31.
Felton, second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie Michalowski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 12F. Discuss and/or action share ride program for 2025 exercise. So I would like to apologize in advance, just with 900 other things going on, this kind of fell through the cracks a little bit, and it came up unusual this year. So if you're at the last couple budget hearings, you would see normally we have to subsidize this program by $25,000. This year it's estimated north of $75,000 that we're going to have to subsidize this. Based on how we get the funding from the agencies, we kind of have to have a direction tonight of how we're going to go about this. So I wish we would have caught it sooner and brought it to you guys sooner for more discussion, but we're kind of, the clock's ticking, so to speak. So I turn it over to Wendy, who knows everything about safe rides.
I just wanted to add to that
Share rides, sorry.
2024, that's the first time that we have subsidized with a local share. Before that, we have had it when the grant application has come through, we've had a 0 local share. So we're going from a one-time in 2024 of $25,000 to, based on where the estimated revenues are going to be, it would be a local share of $76,000. And I emailed all of you quite a bit of information on Thursday, so you had a chance to review it. And we communicated with the state of Wisconsin to see what our options are. And now it would be the time for you to make a decision if you want to continue the shared ride program in 2025 or if you wanted to discontinue it. If we discontinued it, we could continue it back again. We could apply again. We'd just have to give them a year's notice, so there'd be a year lag time.
Correct. So the other couple of people we reached out to was a representative from Hodag Cab, who they believe, from a verbal conversation, they could pick up the slack, that they have the capability to cover if we were to move out and if Runnings was to leave the territory. We also had some conversations with the county, because they do have a similar program with designated routes. They would be open to partnering with us to put routes in the city. Because based on how they're funded, there was a conflict of interest to have routes in the city based on we're funded through a similar source, which, as a taxpayer of the county taxes in the city of Rhinelander, it would be wonderful to have some of my tax dollars go to that program, which could then benefit the city. So that's an interesting view on this too. Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, I think if we didn't have an alternative method, that there would be a lot of upset people taking away the share ride because they love the share ride. I think it's a good program, but you know, it also sounds like it's going to be really expensive for the city. But if we have alternatives, you said Hodag Cab can pick up some of the slack, and
they verbally said they could handle the additional rides.
So with that being said, I do know that I've had many people come to me saying that they prefer Hodag Cab over running cab, honestly. This is what I'm hearing on the street. This is what people come and tell me. I'd be open to letting Hodag Cab pick up the slack, and maybe, what was that other program you're talking about?
So the county has a bus for that. They do designated routes throughout the area.
And they'd be willing to help us out.
They seemed open to talking about it.
Sure.
And then possibly, depending on how this plays out, I had this conversation with Steve earlier today. So it was one of those, it's a moving dynamic. But they would be interested in doing some more routes in the city, as well as it might open up more funding for them to provide the service too. But they're more of a designated route, 9 to 5 kind of program.
But Hodag Cab can pick up after that.
Correct.
The slack if they wanted to. Yeah, I don't know. It seems we're talking about, you know, some constraints on our general fund budget, and, you know, the proposal for the contacting the attorney to cut down on costs. This just seems like a no-brainer to cut down on costs there as well, as long as we have an alternative to pick up some of the slack that would be caused by it. That's just my opinion.
So other two things to keep in mind too is, as we watch our ridership go down year after year, it kind of makes the question of, is there demand for this program or not? Or are we just not the best choice for the public for this demand? The other thing to keep in mind is, if we were to get out of this and if Runnings were to leave the territory, you would be down to one cab company currently, which, not implying or saying Hodag is going to do anything, but, you know, from a free market point of view, one option could lead to higher prices. There's no check and balance there. But as Wendy has stated, it would take about a year to reinstate a program like this. So something just to weigh in your head while you're making a decision. Ms. Michalowski.
Yeah, with going to all of the budget meetings, it's just been obvious that this year in particular, we are really strapped to find additional money. So I think this is one way that we can help the budget in that regard. And we do have alternate resources. So I agree with Tom. I think this is something that we could not have this year. If we seem to need it in the future, we can always reinstate. So I'd like to make a motion to discontinue the shared ride program.
Kramer, second.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Anderson?
Well, I'm in favor of saving money, and I'm in favor of doing something different with this. I just wonder if there's any advantage or disadvantage in putting it out for bids again. I don't think we should continue with running at this point.
So my understanding is, if we were to put it out for bid, there would still be a lapse of service, no matter who is awarded the bid, just based on the timing. Per the terms of the initial contract, we're in the extension year. So I don't know if you could speak more to this, Wendy, but I don't know if we could at this point go out for bid, or if it's a yes or no on their extension contract.
Right now, it's a yes or no on the exercise of options to contract with them for the 25-year. If you wanted to go out, you would have to procure in the same manner that is suitable to the federal funding of this. We do the procurement in, the last time we did it was in 2020 for the 21, 22 contract years with 3 option years. So 2025 would be our next procurement year to contract for 26 and 27 with the following 3 option years. This would just drop it off for the 1 year of time frame. But the procurement process, I believe it took us at least 4 months to go through, and we're in the middle of October. So I don't know how we would complete this process before December 31st.
And the only other thing, and we talked about this at a budget hearing, but not all of us could have attended. So from an asset point of view, this program has 1 vehicle that, I don't know if you want to go into more details, Wendy, if we were to end this, what happens to that vehicle?
So we have 1 vehicle, an accessible van, and it's funded 80% by the shared ride program, and then 20% from the local match. And what we would have to do is we would have to transfer that to another shared ride program. And I'm not certain if it's for equal value if we sell it to them to cover the local share. I didn't ask that question, I apologize.
I'm assuming that local share is less than 75 or 76,000 though.
It's only about 13,000, I believe.
Yeah, so from a budget point of view, it's still a net positive. Mr. Anderson?
Well, so a couple of times in the materials that you gave us, it presents not exercising the option and going out for procurement as one of the choices we could make. But you're saying it would take too long at this point to have anything in place at the beginning of the year.
That is my personal opinion based on my experience in 2020.
So the third option, which I don't know if we want to dabble in that, is we have been funding this by 25,000. In theory, we could still earmark 25,000 and then make our own program of how to help subsidize. But now the share ride program, our 25 is very small compared to what the program costs to operate. So I don't think you would see much change for a ride. You know, it might be save 10 cents if you use our program, which at that point it's a lot of headache and work for not a big impact to the rider. Mr. Jopek?
Oh, I guess, I think along those lines, I think that 25 grand, if we go with a different alternative like the Hodag cab or something, then we use that, if we wanted to use that 25 grand to subsidize those rides or something. But I don't think subsidizing what we currently have and repeating last year when there's a clear growing deficit, I don't think is worth pursuing at this point.
So we do have a motion, we have a second to end the contract and not extend it into 2025. Not seeing any other discussion, clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Luke Kramer. Aye. Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to G, discuss and/or action approving Nate Shepard. He currently is a alternate, and since we have an opening, we're just looking to make him a full-time member versus an alternate on the Ethics Committee.
Holt, I'll make a motion approving the mayor's appointment to boards and commissions. The Ethics Board, Nate Shepard, term expires 4/25.
For a second.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 13, which is all very exciting news that I'm going to let our city administrator share.
Sure. The first one is the county has some land that they're looking to sell. I have to give it to you, so that's in there. The second one is actually relatively interesting. It's Jeremy Biolo was part of an article for Silent Sports Magazine. It says that they golf here too at the Northwood's newest silent sports destination. Hope everybody had a chance to read it. Jeremy's worked pretty darn hard out there, so he's done a pretty good job. So kudos to Jeremy for getting a little publicity for something that we have here in the Northwoods.
I don't believe we need any action on communications. So moving on to 14, future agenda item requests. Anything anyone would like to add? Okay, not seeing. Moving on to 15A, our next budget meeting will be October 16th at 5 p.m. here on the second floor of City Hall. 15B, our next regular common council meeting will be October 28th at 6 p.m. here at City Hall. It is 8:14, meeting adjourned.